And I would say to our friends from Africa and Asia, I'm not sure how much you see this, but in many respects, the European Parliament is the second chamber, the upper house in our government. The chamber which meets on a weekly basis and which deals with so much of the day-to-day business of the Union is the Council of Ministers. You see it every 3 months when there's a European summit and the heads of state and government come together and set the broad policy outlines of the European Union's work. The Council of the European Union is the first chamber, and that chamber is currently presided by a different member country every 6 months. We currently have Slovenia in the chair, and therefore we are very pleased to welcome the Secretary of State for European Affairs, Janez Lenarčič, from Slovenia.
The new European Treaty, the Lisbon Treaty, last December, which is a very important step forward for Europe, also from the perspective of its interaction with international partners and other continents. In particular, the innovations that it brings, innovations like President of the European Council, the post of the High Representative for the EU Foreign and Security Policy, as well as External Action Service. These are all elements that, in our view, are going to strengthen the European Union. They will strengthen the Union that will speak with one voice with others in the world. Of course, we are now in the most delicate phase of bringing this treaty into force. That is the phase of national ratifications. For both Slovenian and the subsequent French presidency, this is the cardinal priority.
I think if there's any issue that is of vital importance to humankind, an issue if not tackled quickly, with commitment and dedication, can bring catastrophic consequences, I think it must be the issue of climate change, and in particular global warming caused by the emission of greenhouse gases. As some of the speakers had earlier said, among the risks and dangers include small islands being inundated with rising sea levels, rising food prices, water shortages, and increasing incidence of poverty and disease.
We have the general criteria for the general distribution, the general dissemination of emission permits. And what we have to do now is come up with some criteria which are globally fair and equitable. When we are assigning emissions permits, I think we have to ensure that a proportion should be actually given out freely on the basis of the principle of equity.
Now, a couple of years ago, the debate on climate change was very hot in Europe. It is, by now, I think everyone realizes that this is a fact and these are problems that we have to deal with. There are a number of reasons why we have a momentum in European politics right now to take very tough decisions on climate change. And it's not only environmental issues, it's also security issues, the debate with the Gulf states, but also in Europe and for the 10 new member states from Eastern Europe, particularly the situation in Russia.
The Bangkok as an amphibious city for the next generation. And then that reminds me of two things. I think I found the project very, very interesting. First, the history of Thai life, the Thai community, and even the establishment of the various Thai capitals, especially Bangkok, 250 years ago. The concept from the Thai point of view was to establish a city that can be flooded.
But if the person knows that they are ill, that they have the proper medicine, but they're not taking it, that is another problem. And today we see that one of the biggest problems in the world for climate change is emissions of greenhouse gases, but we are still emitting these gases.
The issue of human trafficking and child prostitution is, of course, much more difficult and complex than it would seem at first sight, because sometimes you have amalgamations between illegal immigration or migration outside the boundaries of the legal systems, which are equated with human trafficking and not always rightly so.
In this bill, we try to address the issue of human trafficking from 3 levels. The prevention, we call it 3 Ps: prevention, protection, and the prosecution of the organized crime. We see this as transnational organized crime. So there are 3 dimensions of this that we must address simultaneously. The problem, we all know that it exists. In Taiwan, actually, a country where I come from, it's seen as a transition country as well as a destination country.
It is not just a problem in Europe or Southeast Asia. In my work in the European Parliament and dealing with Southeast Asia, of course, I'm confronted with the problem over there very much in countries like Thailand, where it's becoming a little bit less, but then it's shifting to Cambodia, shifting to the Philippines, and it is a big problem there. But I know that it's also a problem in quite a few African countries, and it is an increasing problem in South America, and it's a problem in Europe itself.
The junta in power in Myanmar has called for a referendum on the 10th of May on a new text for the Constitution. They have said that this constitutional text will enter into force in 2010 on the occasion of the first general elections being called.
I don't know why I'm here today. No doubt there's some reason, because I often grudge myself having survived my own children. The problem is that today, more than a half century, and the first massacre I witnessed, I was 5 years old. I was born after the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I never knew those human rights other than on paper.
Findings and tracking surveys by organizations and indices like Freedom House, the Bertelsmann Transformation Index, and the Global Integrity Index evince a marked setback for global freedom and sound governance in 2007. Freedom House notes that the decline in freedom reflected reversals in 1/5 of the countries, particularly South Asia. Similar trends were also noted in the former Soviet Union, the Middle East, North Africa, and the Sub-Saharan Africa.
I wish to sincerely thank the organizers and indeed the speakers and all the participants for making this session worthwhile. And I would like to say that the syrup has worked and the synergy has been created between the ALDE, CALD, and indeed ALDEPAC. We on the ALDEPAC that participated at this session are really and exceedingly grateful for this opportunity, and I believe that we're looking forward to more of this type of sessions with our brothers and colleagues from the other side of the liberal and democrat legislators and indeed leaders. We appreciate all the efforts and thank you most sincerely.